You live back to Washington. In other news this morning, the San Francisco Police Department is under fire after a startling investigation revealed racist and homophobic text messages sent by police officers. Messages like this one reading "white power," or this one that says, "Get your pocket gun, keep it available in case the monkey returns to its roots. It's not against the law to put an animal down." Oh, in light of those messages, more than 3,000 cases over the course of a decade are now being reviewed and could be overturned. Let's talk about this with Tom Fuentes. He is a CNN law enforcement analyst and former FBI assistant director. Good morning, Tom.
Morning, Carol.
What do you make of this? I mean, those are not subtle at all.
No, when I hear these stories and cops that send these kind of messages or behave in that kind, it makes me sick, because it brings into disrepute all of the hundreds of thousands of outstanding police officers who are not racist, who don't do this. And these cities that don't have an adequate selection program to not select people that have this kind of poor, terrible character or racist thoughts or corruption and other issues like that in their character, I think it's terrible. And the cops that do this then make everything else questionable. You know, we just talked about Brian Moore, the New York City police officer gunned down. You know, that would have been, if that subject would have been pulling out and if Moore had shot him with all of his experience that probably reaching in his waistband means something dangerous is going to happen, and it turned out to be a pack of cigarettes just as he shot him, we'd be hanging Moore for being a racist, yet another racist white cop killing a black guy. Instead, he's dead. So that's the problem that comes up when white cops do this. They endanger all the other cops that are out there that are decent and good and trying to enforce the law and trying to use their experience to keep their own lives and communities from being killed.
So supposedly these racist tweets might affect 3,000 cases. How will the department going about figuring that out?
Well, I think that they'll go back to who these officers are that sent these messages, and then how many cases were they involved in, how many arrests did they make, were the arrests possibly judgment calls that could be called into question based on their racist activities, the times that they arrested a black person or a minority member. In San Francisco, where I worked for the FBI for many years, actually the whites are in a minority there because of the large Asian population in San Francisco. So you do have minority population in a city like that. That city should be as diverse or more diverse than almost any major city in the country.
San Francisco's district attorney did talk about this. Let's listen and then comment on the other side.
As evidenced by events in Baltimore, Staten Island, Ferguson, Missouri, South Carolina, and far too many other places, when a police officer engages in misconduct, there are significant implications for public safety and for the public trust, particularly in our minority communities.
So he's saying this is not just about a few bad apples, but a systemic problem across the country. Do you agree?
No, I don't think it's systemic across the country, but there are, in many communities, it's systemic, but it appears more systemic in some cases just because it only takes a few officers to do it, and then everybody else to go along with it, if they're even aware of it, or to not report it to senior officers. And if you have cases like that, if this turns out that other officers reported it higher up in their chain of command and nothing was done about it, then that's yet another issue for discipline to be taken against those officers or those commanders that didn't take action.
Tom Fuentes, thanks for your insight as always. I appreciate it.
You're welcome, Carol.
Still to come in the newsroom, the attack in Garland, Texas, ringing alarm bells at the FBI.